everybody, Black Ninja 797 here, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about Hero 28. Hero 28 finally got announced today for Overwatch, and Hero 28 may not be what you were expecting. Hero 28 even surprised me, and I normally am following the Overwatch storyline pretty much up to date, pretty much 24/7. And I normally am able to make a fair guess alongside the community, but I completely did not expect this at all. So we're going to be talking about this together. So let's talk about Hero 28. As you guys can tell by the title and by also the thumbnail, Hero 28 is, you guessed it, a hamster. I don't understand why. Apparently it has to do something with, with being on Horizon Lunar Colony. Winston, alongside the other, gorillas. There was Hammond, who was a hamster that was on board, and apparently he was even, smarter than all the, the gorillas combined. He was, a kind of little dorky, mess with stuff he shouldn't. He was just kind of basically like your normal troublemaker, and he was one of the smartest creatures on the whole entire place. Now, he ended up escaping alongside Winston. He just hitched a ride on Winston's, escape pod when all the, the gorillas were revolting and everything. And he ended up landing in a separate part of the Earth compared to Winston. We all know that if you follow the storyline, that when Winston ended up going to the Earth, he ended up arriving at Watch Point Gibraltar, and that's where he kind of set up. And then Hammond, on the other hand, he landed in a separate part of the world because his escape pod landed in a different area, or I guess you could say his part of the escape pod landed in a different area. He actually landed just outside of Junkertown, so he actually was nearby all the Junkers, and even, probably ran into Roadhog and Junkrat a couple of times, maybe, I don't know. We haven't gotten that far really in his story, so I guess he's got kind of, ties to people with Junkertown, and then also people that knew Winston at Horizon Lunar Colony. Now, the thing is that with the storyline, he's not officially a Junker. That's one thing we have to keep in mind. Jeff confirmed it in his, kind of like his normal Overwatch daily video, weekly update thing. I can't believe I can't remember the name of what those types of videos are. I guess it's just the Overwatch weekly update videos. There we go. And when it comes to, him being able to interact with the characters and everything, I'm not sure how that's going to go. One of the things, though, that we do need to keep in mind, though, also with his character interactions, is that even though he is intelligent, he cannot actually speak for himself. He doesn't actually have the, a way to actually be able to communicate verbally like Winston, per se. Even though he is really intelligent, he actually will communicate through his mech, which is actually just the modified escape pod, because he modified his escape pod and made it into his own little, mech suit, kind of similar to D.Va. And so D.Va and, Roadhog and, I guess you could say technically Hammond are going to probably be the three most beefiest characters. That's actually one of the things I also want to talk about next too, is all of his abilities and his stats. So Hammond is obviously going to be a tank hero. I thought that he was probably going to be, more of a DPS hero when I saw that he was rolling around as a ball and everything, and he was kind of short and whatever, but apparently he's actually a lot bigger. He's actually more of a, kind of a smaller sized, human in terms of size, and then, just or in other words, he's just a giant ass hamster, but he's almost the equivalent of a small human, so I guess around Torb size. But with the mech, he's going to be, a little bit bigger, so he's going to be around D.Va size with the mech. The mech will actually make it that way. He's going to have 600 health. This is the third tank that's going to have 600 health. Therefore, he's the third character to have the maximum default health, unless you actually gain more somehow, which would be via different abilities. So Roadhog, D.Va, and then now Hammond is going to be the characters with the most health inside of the game. Now, another thing you also got to keep in mind are his abilities. So with Hammond, or I guess you could also say, technically, he's going to actually be called Wrecking Ball, because the abilities and his name will correlate. You'll see why in a second here. But his abilities are pretty funny. His abilities will actually allow him to be a more mobile tank. This will allow him to end up being more, I guess, for the dive meta. But Hammond, when it comes to his kits, his default guns are similar to D.Va. He literally pretty much has the exact same type of look. He's in a mech. You can see his little hamster hands, which is kind of funny. His hands are outside the mech, but most of his body's protected from inside. And you can just see his hands working the mech. And apparently his damage is insane from what I've seen, at least on the PTR. It's absolutely ridiculous. He's probably gonna need a nerf. The character approaches lately have been just make them overpowered at first and then nerf them as they go, instead of making them weak and then buffing them as they go, because people don't really care to use them when they're weak. so I guess that makes sense, but I kind of really hope that the character is balanced, to be honest. Hammond also actually has a passive, I think is what it allows him to do. I'm not sure if it's an actual ability, but I looked at it, I think it's a passive. Apparently with his passive, he gains shield based off of just enemies around him. If I'm reading that correctly, I don't know if that's for sure. I wouldn't take my word on that just because I'm not 100% certain. I'm only just finding out this information today, just as much as you guys, so things may be subject to change, or, you know, he might change from, like, the PTR or whatever, because I know that sometimes they nerf him on the PTR for the live game. But from what I can see so far, he gains shields for just being around enemies, and the more enemies, the more shield he gets. When I was watching gameplay of people in the PTR, the most I ever saw him at was an extra 100. So he only had 700 health, but 100 of that would make it shields. So that'd be kind of interesting. He kind of just gains health by default, so he'll have 600 health, but he'll be always in a gunfight with 700. That makes kind of no sense. I don't know why. Another thing that he has is that he has the ability to transform into a wrecking ball, funny enough. He can actually kind of go into a little, I guess you can say like an armadillo ball, and he can roll around, and this is like his main, you know, speed ability. He can roll up into like an armadillo ball, or like the ball from like Cannonbolt from Ben 10, and he can go around spinning and going really quickly, and it's pretty cool, and he can just be more mobile that way, and I guess he can unfold at will. So it's kind of like, you know, his speed ability, like Reaper has Wraith form, where it has Fade, Tracer has Blink, stuff like that. Now you can also use this to use combos. You can actually use a grappling hook when you're in this ball form, and you can use it so that way you can like fling around and literally be a wrecking ball. You will go into the ball form, and there's another button that you would hit like on mouse and keyboard, and it will make it so that way it can attach to, I believe, any flat surface. And when you end up attaching, you can spin around, and you can, you know, just do, you know, you can do the WASD, and you can spin around in circles. And I guess just direct impact counts as a wrecking ball, where you do like mild damage, I guess. I'm not exactly sure how that would work, but from what I've seen, you can like swing around as a wrecking ball for at least speed, maybe even damage. And another thing is too, is that, I know this for sure, you can actually do a slam ability, which is kind of cool. So you become the wrecking ball, you use the grappling hook part, you will grab onto something, and then your crouch button, you just kind of like make it where that you slam right where you're like above, and then like anybody directly underneath you gets crushed. So it's kind of like this seismic slam ability, I guess, which is pretty cool. And then the ultimate, which is, I believe, would be inspired, you know, from his history being at Junkertown, maybe even got from Junkrat, I don't know. But his ability for his ultimate is a whole bunch of landmines. So from where he stands, and, you know, the moment that he presses his alt button, all these surrounding areas from where he's standing and even a little bit around him will drop a whole bunch of these mines, similar to Junkrat's mines, but they don't detonate immediately as soon as you want. They get placed down, and there's about, like, I believe, like 10 of them, and the mines don't set off right away. Keep that in mind. This is not something that you can go around and you can literally go right into somebody's spawn and then kind of like do a mine spam and then immediately just blow up everything in the path as soon as you hit the button. That's not how it works. They have to arm. So when you actually hit the ult, they you know, the arms, they actually have to arm and mine. So when you end up hitting it, don't think that you're gonna get kills right away. You actually have to arm the mines, and then you actually have to wait a couple seconds for them to actually be 100% fully ready. And then after you end up doing that, they will just stay there. I don't know if they're gonna have a time limit. I don't know if you actually have to destroy them. I don't know how exactly they're gonna work, but from what I see, they don't go away unless you either trigger them or, I believe, shoot them. So when you end up setting these things off or shooting them, then they go away. Which is kind of, I guess, the best way to get rid of them, which is just to be shooting them from at range. That's if they're not trying to like cut around a corner or something. Because I can imagine people placing this in a high traffic area, like on the point, so that way you have to like suicide for your team to win. Or I can see people like placing this around corners, so that way like when you try to go around a corner to like get back to the objective, you just get blown up out of nowhere. Because I believe once they are armed, when you immediately walk into them, then they just set off. So I guess that's kind of like your warning is the very beginning, and then like everything else you kind of just have to guess. I don't know how much noise they're going to make. I don't know if you're going to get really a lot of warning. So it's just really all going to depend on how they bounce this and how people also play with it, because you know, YouTubers and streamers are going to use this completely different compared to casuals. That's just always been the case for any video game ever. And with these ults, it looks like that the damage is not absolutely insane. The most that I was able to see was a 2-shot, and that's even on a DPS character. or like the equivalent of a DPS, because I believe the training bots only have 200 HP, which is like Soldier, and you know, like let's say, you know, who's another character that's like 200, or like Soldier or Junkrat health. So that would be, you know, something I guess pretty balanced and make it a 2-shot. And so if like they're not clustered right next to each other, you don't run into 2 right in a row, you should be fine. From what I've seen, they kind of just scatter in the same types of places. They tend to be like a couple inches from each other, but there's a gap in between, so that way you can actually, if you want to very carefully, you can run in between the mines and not necessarily have to set them off. So you just gotta be very careful. Pretend it's like a Mission Impossible thing where you're ducking underneath the wire. So pretty much, like, I guess the character seems pretty balanced and stuff like that. I'm not really sure, like I said, how he's going to play in the actual game, but we'll just have to wait and see. Let me know what you guys think about Hammond in the comment section down below. And this also kind of like just something I want to throw out. The reason why that a couple people may be calling him Wrecking Ball is because his actual in-game name is Wrecking Ball. Jeff calls him Wrecking Ball, but his real name, you know, for the storyline is Hammond. It's kind of like calling, you know, somebody like, let's say, Farah, or Brigida, Bridget, or like Orisa, Orisa. Like, I'm pretty sure everyone's just calling him Hammond instead of actually Wrecking Ball. So maybe the people that don't pay attention to the story might call him Wrecking Ball, but really he's only called Wrecking Ball because that's what his mech is and not what the actual character is. That would be kind of like calling Diva something else because of her mech being called something else, you know. It'd be kind of stupid, or calling Torbjorn Turret. But anyways, that's just something I kind of wanted to point out. I hope you guys ended up enjoying what I had to say, just talking about Hammond and Hero 28. Do I think that this character is cool? To be honest, I'm kind of really more on the disappointed side, just because I think it's a little bit stupid, but at the same time, though, I mean, Overwatch ends up pulling through anyway, so we'll just see. I'll try to be optimistic about it. I just kind of wish that it really wasn't really a hamster, you know? Anyways, I hope you ended up enjoying. Please leave a like if you did, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you later, guys. Peace.